What are some of your methods you use when farming?
Well, what this place is, this is a nursery basically, yeah? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to grow like plenty of plants. Instead of having like food crops, we have nursery crops. So then we got plenty of ornamental plants, but plenty of useful plants too. And what we'll do is we'll put the plants in the ground. As soon as they get seeds or they get keikis, we take the keikis, put them in pots, and then we sell them, yeah? But at the same time, we're also growing other plants like bananas, papayas, and food crops, all mixed in together, yeah? So it's it's a diversified ecosystem.
Okay. So how long have you been here running this nursery?
This nursery, we've been here about 2 years.
2 years. Do you incorporate cover crops?
Well, the classical definition of a cover crop or the use of a cover crop is normally after you harvest your main crop, you would use a cover crop. And a cover crop is not really something that's designed for a yield. It's designed to increase the soil fertility, yeah? So what we do, because we have a diversified system, we're covering the ground with everything, and so we're using ground covers, we're using vines, we're using shrubs, bushes, trees. So we've got a multi-layered canopy. So we're kind of using the whole ecosystem as a cover crop to increase the soil fertility, to do the same function as the cover crop. Prevent erosion, provide green manure, because we're constantly, like if we have banana trees, we'll chop them up and just throw them back underneath. If we've got a mamaki bush, we're constantly cutting it back and then just throwing the mulch right back underneath the plant, so we're increasing the soil fertility that way. So we use our whole ecosystem and the canopy approach. We're constantly using that as a cover crop to increase the soil fertility, yeah.
So what kind of cover crops do you use here?
Well, the cover crops that we use, like the basic ground covers we use sweet potato, we also use comfrey, and all of these things, like the comfrey, what it is, it's a deep-rooted small shrub. It's also, and it grows bushy, like a 2 foot, and it grows bushy, but we put it against anywhere we've got edges. So anywhere where we've got grass and then we've got our beds, we'll put the comfrey, because the comfrey will keep the grass from encroaching into the beds where we've got our plants, yeah. So all of the nursery plants, we've got probably 50 ground covers planted around here, and they're all part of kind of our cover crop kind of system, yeah.
Do you know of any native Hawaiian cover crops?
Well, I don't know of a native Hawaiian. The classic definition of a cover crop would be something that is normally it's a legume, yeah, and because a legume is a nitrogen fixer. And so what a nitrogen fixing plant does is it takes nitrogen from the air, puts it into the root system, and when you cut that plant or when you till that plant, it releases that nitrogen into the soil, so it increases the fertility of the soil. So there are leguminous Hawaiian plants, and sometimes you'll see it's like that little silvery one, like that's at Kanaha, and it's got like a little P on it. So I'm not sure of the name of it, but I'm sure there are nitrogen fixing native plants at any kind of production, yeah. So because we've got a lot of hilly terrain on this piece of land, we're trying to maximize and utilize every single square inch. So all these plants on this hillside are useful to us in some way. Our ground cover is sweet potato, yeah. So this is a harvestable crop, and you can see this is an example of using a ground cover as kind of a cover crop, yeah. It's a harvestable crop, but it stops the erosion, yeah, because normally when you get like plenty rain over here, it would wash this hillside out. But because this dissipates the rain, it keeps it from washing the hillside out. And here, but this comfrey keeps the grass from getting into our beds, and every 3 or 4 months, we'll just cut back all the comfrey, and then we'll throw it underneath the plant in order to use it as mulch to keep us from having to weed, yeah? So just cutting them, throwing them under your plants, just using them as mulch, again, for a weed barrier, yeah? So basically, you're trying to grow your own mulch. We're growing some grasses over here, like underneath that lychee tree. There's vetiver grass, and again, the only reason we grow it is for mulch. Once it gets to be 4 or 5 feet high, we'll do the same thing. We'll cut it back and we'll just throw it underneath the lychee tree to increase the fertility of the soil, yeah? And every one of these beds is all planted with that same philosophy, yeah? It's diversity, Sisbania. So It's mostly utilized by Southeast Asian people. The Filipino community utilizes this tree for the flower, yeah. They'll take the flower and you can sell it at the market. It's edible, and it is a nitrogen fixing tree, yeah. So every time we cut it back, you know, there's no longer some part of the root system is going to die off because it's no longer has something, this foliage to feed it. We'll throw it under here as mulch, and then it's releasing nitrogen into the ground, yeah. So this is a nitrogen fixing tree. You know, another example of a nitrogen fixing ground cover. This is called perennial peanut or golden glory, yeah. And so this has only been planted like probably 6 months ago. But after a year, this will get thick enough where no weeds will come up through it. And again, it's the same thing. It's constantly taking nitrogen from the air, putting it in the soil. When it gets to be like this tall, we'll cut it back. It'll release that nitrogen into the soil, yeah.